Hi, everybody, and welcome to the first 2022 edition of the Southern Fried Podcast, a production of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. I'm Rex Nelson, senior editor of the Democrat Gazette, and our regular's back. Guy I call Mr. Arkansas, Skip Rutherford, as we start a new year. Happy New Year, Skip.
Happy New Year to you, Rex. I hope 2022 is a great one for you and your family. You and I both are leaving 2021 with the joy of mincemeat pie.
Got to. My sister, still has the family recipe, and it was one of my gifts from her, as always, for Christmas, but it's long gone by now. I still have some of my fruitcake from Texas left, but the mincemeat pie is long gone.
I have a friend, Betty Cook, a volunteer at the Clinton Center and big help to me at the Clinton School when I was there. Wonderful lady. She makes mincemeat pie, and she makes me one. She did it this year, and it didn't last long, but it sure was good.
Yeah. Well, like I said, still working on the fruitcake, but still got a few of the nuts that I ordered. But most of the holiday foods I've knocked off, and I gotta watch what I'm eating now that we're into winter and started a new year. What I thought we would do, Skip, is you and I make some predictions for what we see happening in Arkansas, and maybe we can comment on those also. So I've got a list. I know you've got a list. So here's what we expect to see, maybe hope to see in Arkansas in 2022.
You start.
You want me to start?
You start.
All right. Well, of course, we started the year with the great announcement that U.S. Steel is going to put what they expect to be the most modern technology-forward steel mill ever built in the world. And it's going to be in Northeast Arkansas. Related jobs, if you add them into the direct jobs, we're talking at least 900 new employees, averaging over $100,000 a year in those jobs. I mean, just what the Arkansas Delta needed. I'm not necessarily saying these are going to be in the Delta, but my first prediction is before Governor Asa Hutchinson leaves office at the end of the year, I think we're going to see one or two really big additional economic development announcements in 2022, Skip. I think Arkansas is well positioned to have a good year from a job standpoint.
Yes, Rex, I tend to agree that Asa Hutchinson, who has wanted to be known as the jobs governor, and as he leaves office at the end of 2022, I also predict that he will go down as the COVID governor. We are getting close to 2 years of COVID under his watch. And on March the 24th in 2020 was our first deaths. We're on track by March 24th of 2022 to have 10,000 deaths. That nears the population, Rex, of your beloved Arkadelphia.
Absolutely.
Arkansas has the seventh highest death rate in the country. It's low in vaccination and booster shots. We may have been ready for business, and I give the governor credit for that, but we have not been ready for public health, and I give him credit for that as well. That's my prediction in 2022, that people will take a serious look at how Arkansas performed under COVID, and those results will not be good.
How, and I'm following up on this, Skip, those that simply refuse to get vaccinated, is it not true there's only so much government can do at some point?
Well, there is, Rex, but when you go back to early, the vaccination thing is part of it. When you go back early, Arkansas went to phase 2 before it was ready. Arkansas was late in a mask mandate. 170 doctors tried to meet with the governor to talk about it. Arkansas had the worst prison record of any state in the country. New York Magazine wrote a big article about it. And just recently, he just blows off the Arkansas Center for Health Improvement, who basically said, when you have children under age 5 who can't get vaccinated, you should consider, where possible, sheltering in place. Of course, that makes good health sense. He's a business governor, I get it, but his policies on public health and COVID have not been as genuine as his policies, or successful as his policies on jobs. Again, we were ready for business under his administration, and I'll applaud that, but we have not been ready for public health.
All right. as we move forward in 2022, Skip, and of course, you're no doctor, I'm no doctor, we're not scientists, but where do you see the pandemic going in Arkansas? I think, my prediction based on other countries that we've seen, that Omicron will fall off very rapidly, and you will basically, by the end of the year, have an endemic disease, not a pandemic, and it will be one of the unvaccinated. And I'm being very frank here. Those that have simply refused to get vaccines, I've run out of empathy for them a long time ago, but I think life will pretty well be back to normal for the rest of us.
In July of 2021, Governor Hutchinson said that we were not facing a surge. And in August of 2021, we reached our highest hospitalizations and case rates that are going to be passed now in January of 2022. So we still have over 1 million people unvaccinated. Our vaccination rates are pitiful compared to the other parts of the country. And our booster rates, quite frankly, are really sad. And I'm not blaming the governor for that. But what I am saying is that in July of 2021, we weren't going to have a surge. We had one. No one predicted the Omicron surge would be as serious as it has been. Now everybody's saying, well, it's going to go away quick. It's going to go away. It's going to not be as well. Ask the people at Children's Hospital where kids are record numbers. So my prediction is that we may learn how to live with COVID in 2022, but with 1 million people unvaccinated and with no vaccine yet for children 5 and under, we're not out of the woods yet.
All right, back to another prediction from me, and I'm going to go back to my first prediction of more big job announcements. Back to Northeast Arkansas, back to Osceola, back to the new plant. I also predict that a number of those new employees at the new U.S. Steel mill, unfortunately, will not live in Arkansas. We've seen thousands of new jobs in the steel industry created in recent decades in Mississippi County, and yet the county as a whole continues to bleed population. What a lot of people don't understand is those workers work a schedule of 4 days on and 4 days off. During their 4 days on, many of them live in trailers, and then they return home to Tennessee, to Western Kentucky, to the Boot Hill of Missouri, even to Southern Illinois after that. And I predict that's going to continue to be the case, Skip, unless we can put a renewed emphasis in that part of the state on better public schools and quality of life amenities.
Rex, I agree with you. I think that's exactly right. And my friend, and your friend, Cliff Chitwood, who is the Economic Development Director for Mississippi County, who has done just an absolutely incredible job, ought to be in the running for Arkansan of the Year because he has been a huge force for good in the Delta. The housing issue is a major issue in the schools. The state, in my opinion, now that after recruiting these big plants, the governor and the legislature ought to make an investment in housing and in education in that area. And that, if that means extra funding or that means designing villages like Wilson, Arkansas, that ought to be done. So you got to do something different than what they're doing now. I think we need not only an economic development initiative in Mississippi County, which has been successful. I think we need a human development initiative in Mississippi County and other parts of the Delta. We're seeing things happening that are good. My prediction on economic development is that it's going to be the continued success story of the Little Rock Port. And let's look at that example, Rex. The two examples that I think about revitalization is that UAMS was at one point considered a charity hospital, and now it's a fine, outstanding regional medical center.
Exactly.
The Little Rock Port, it was built in 1971. It was a sleepy economic development thing that everybody said, oh, there's a port down there. Most people have never even been there in central Arkansas. Now, with what's happening, and particularly with the latest initiatives, including Amazon, I think the Little Rock Port really has a great future. And what it has, unfortunately, that Cliff and Blyville and U.S. Steel don't have over there is that its workforce lives here. Its workforce lives in Cabot and Little Rock and North Little Rock and Jacksonville and other places. So there may be some commute, but its workforce is in Central Arkansas. That's a challenge, and that's why a human development initiative needs to be done, particularly starting, and I would start in Mississippi County.
Gotcha. Got another prediction?
Yeah, I want to shift from economic development to the subject you and I both love, and that's sports, is that we're going to see in 2022 a record number of athletes in the transfer portal. We've gotten over 1,400 people who have applied for transfers. That averages out to well over 11 per individual FBS school. And so the game, as you and I knew it and watched it, is so different. And so recruiting is like a free agent year-round now. It's not like signing freshmen. And when you look at, just two examples, Rex, Blake Group, the great kicker at Arkansas State, and Tyler Hudson, the great wide receiver at UCA, entering the transfer portals, not because they were not successful, probably because they want to enhance their draft status and play for a bigger school. So I think the transfer portal is going to continue to change the game of football.
I will make a prediction, since we're in the sports area, along those lines as it directly relates to Arkansas. I think 2022 is the year that we will see the boards of trustees of the University of Arkansas system and the Arkansas State University system agree that the time has come to make an Arkansas State football game an annual affair. Of course, they're going to have the first one at War Memorial Stadium in Little Rock in 2025, but I think they will agree that will be an annual non-conference game beginning later in this decade, Skip, between those two teams. The time has come.
Well, the time has come, and we've both been on this soapbox for a long time. And I got to say, I got to give the, Hunter Yurachek and the coaches at the University of Arkansas credit for playing in-state schools. I think we're moving in that direction. It would be a great thing to bring the state together at War Memorial Stadium to have an Arkansas State football game as one, because both of these schools recruit statewide. ASU gets kids from Northwest Arkansas, and Arkansas gets kids from Eastern Arkansas. So I think you're exactly right. My 2022 Razorback football projection would be that we'll have a shot at holding our own at 8-4. Again, schedule is more favorable this year for home games. Tough games: Cincinnati, Brigham Young, Alabama, Texas A&M. I mean, there's
extremely tough schedule again.
But you got home games. You got some that Texas A&M is in Dallas. But so I think Arkansas could end up with the same season, go back to another bowl, and I feel pretty good about the future.
All right, from sports to politics, our other favorite subject, Skip. My next prediction, of course, it's an easy prediction to make, that Sarah Huckabee Sanders will be our next governor. I put in a column recently that unless something the equivalent of the 1811, 1812 New Madrid earthquakes hit, that's going to happen. Now, a big earthquake can always hit, so that chance of something happening remains out there, and I will say that. I think, though, when we turn to the state's largest city, my prediction is I can't make a prediction. I think there will be 3 or more candidates file for mayor, and I'm not sure that Mayor Frank Scott is reelected in 2022.
Rex, I think 2022 is going to be an interesting election cycle in the city of Little Rock, because the state is clearly dominated by Republican. And so I think that's pretty evident. But I think in the city of Little Rock, I think we have to wait and see who gets in. I think Little Rock is still a Democratic city. It depends if it becomes a partisan race in the end. So I think it's way early to make that call. I do think that Mayor Scott has put himself into what I thought would have been early on a pretty easy re-election battle by making some stumbles. It reminds me a lot of Bill Clinton's first term as governor.
As governor of Arkansas,
when most people aren't even, you and I are about the only ones alive that can remember that. As you go, he had an aggressive plan. He surrounded himself with some young, talented...
The bearded young men, as John Robert Starr called them on the pages of the Arkansas Democrat.
That unfortunately took Clinton out of touch with everyday Arkansans, and he paid a big political price for it. I think to a certain degree, whether it's true or not true, the perception of Mayor Scott is that his listening circle is very limited and very small, and people who attempt to try to give him advice seem to be very frustrated. So, too early to call. If it becomes a partisan race, that might play in Frank Scott's favor. But I'm not so sure that the issues are on his side right now.
Going back to that first Bill Clinton term as governor, Skip, in 1979, 1980, after the 1980 defeat to Frank White, you and I know the history very well. Bill Clinton brings on an old grizzled veteran named Maurice Smith from Bird Eye over in Cross County, who had connections all over the state. Mayor Scott, a person I like a lot, needs to find his Little Rock version of Maurice Smith.
Well, Clinton, he did, and that certainly helped him. It also helped mentor young people around him because Maurice Smith was a real force. Clinton did the same thing when he ran for president in 92. He brought Bill Bowen into the governor's office to stabilize. So I tend to agree with you. I think that if I were Mayor Scott, I would be studying Bill Clinton's first term very carefully.
All right. Got another one for me?
I do. I think that one of the things that we're going to see in 2022 is a continuation of remote work. I think returning to the office full-time, as some people have written, will be a part of history. Pre-pandemic, 1 in 67 jobs were remote. Now it's 1 in 7. And more than one half of the employees in the country want to be remote or hybrid. So I think flexibility is going to be the name of the game. That's part one of the issue. Part two of the issue is that the older, not newer, but the older downtown office buildings in cities, including Little Rock, are no longer as attractive to companies as they were in the past. The post-pandemic world has changed that. So I see remote hybrid work becoming a part of the economic future. And when you look at the top 100 companies that are recruiting remotely, you're talking about Mayo Clinic, AT&T, American Express, Verizon. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And as you and I are gathered for this podcast, you couldn't help but notice that the number of people at the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette who are still working remotely.
The vast majority, frankly. It's at least in the newsroom. Let me follow up on that with a prediction of my own on something you touched on. Because of that return or that move to remote work, I predict that a developer will do something exciting, and this may be wishful thinking, but we'll do something exciting, make the announcement at least in 2022 with one of the high-rises downtown. I don't know if I'm talking the Bank of America building or the Regions building, but what they will do is they will turn that into a multi-use facility. Skip, it will no longer be all offices. Some floors may be apartments. Some floors may be condominiums. Some floors may even be a boutique hotel. But there is no longer the need for that much office space in downtown Little Rock. Those are great high-rises, though, and somebody's going to do something exciting with at least one of them.
Well, I hope you're right. I would not be as optimistic on the prediction as you are, but I hope you are right. Those buildings need a lot of work. The parking decks are in trouble. The elevators need major repair. The ventilation is going to have to completely be redone. And we're not there. The Little Rock Club and all those places are gone. So I hope you're right. I think what you may be seeing, and again, I don't know this, but I think you're seeing like people doing renovation like John Flake's doing it at the old AP&L building at like 9th in Louisiana and redoing that building. People are making spaces with new or buildings that can be renovated that adapt to a modern workforce that would, want to come in a couple of days a week and have meetings and so forth, but may want to spend 5 days a week at home. And so, I don't know, Rex, from a just purely selfish perspective, I hope you're right. It's going to take a lot of money to do that, and you could almost take that money and build something new.
We shall see. I also expect, while on the topic of downtown development, I also expect one or more exciting announcements in downtown Hot Springs in 2022. We've seen some good things happen there. There's still a lot of empty space, still things that happen. But I think with what Oaklawn's done south on Central Avenue, with new developments downtown like the Hale Bathhouse turning into a boutique hotel, the Waters development in recent years, I think Hot Springs is on the verge of a new era, Skip, which is going to be very good for all of Arkansas.
Rex, I agree with you. I think Hot Springs I think it has a chance to return to its glory days. And I'm not talking about, Al Capone and more Babe Ruth than Al Capone.
Exactly.
But I do think that Hot Springs has strong leadership. It has a strong outdoor, indoor tourism base. If we can get the Arlington Hotel back in good shape, which I think is possible, I think that is going to make a big difference. I predict to you the cities to watch starting in 22 would be Hot Springs. I also think West Memphis is one to keep an eye on about what's happening there. Mm-hmm. And again, if the governor and the legislature will invest in human development in Mississippi County, we could make a big difference in the Delta.
Most Arkansans don't realize, but soon, by the end of 2022, this isn't a prediction, this is a fact, the tallest building in Arkansas outside the city of Little Rock will not be in Northwest Arkansas we talk about so much. It will be in West Memphis, Skip. It will be that 20-story new hotel that Southland is building there.
It will. And one of the things that you're seeing, I believe, with that is a new sort of linkage between West Memphis and Memphis, where I've always worried about healthcare in the Delta. It's been a concern of mine for a long time. But with West Memphis coming back and Memphis continuing, despite some of the challenges faced, continuing to attract industry, to attract new flights. I mean, you just read something every day about something going on in Memphis on a good thing. And that building, so you can sit in the Memphis and look at the West Memphis skyline. And
now you can, yep.
And there's something good about that. I would say on that, Rex, one of the things we're going to see in 2022 is something that we have celebrated in 2021, and that was the passage of Amendment 75, which is the 1/8 cent tax for parks and tourism, game and fish, and keep Arkansas beautiful. But particularly I want to focus on parks and tourism because one of the things that I think we can look at 2022 is that our state parks will continue to get better and will continue to be renovated. And when you look at what's been done and what's going to be done, you can say, wow, this is a real strength for Arkansas is a natural, though I still favor we're the land of opportunity. But I do think this parks and tourism will continue to really be a strong asset in 2022.
I mentioned Oaklawn, I mentioned Southland and its new 20-story hotel going up. I'll make another prediction for 2022, Skip. I predict we will reach the end of the year and there will still be ongoing litigation in Russellville over that proposed casino, and we will yet to see ground broken at the end of 2022.
Yeah, that one's complicated. What I say about 2022 is the great work that Oaklawn, Southland, and Saracen have done for their communities. One can debate casinos and gambling and all that stuff, but when you look at the community impact that those three places are having, and a shout out to my buddy Carlton Safa, former student of mine, who's really, I think, done spectacular work in Pine Bluff. But again, Oaklawn and Southland are doing well too. So I'm a little baffled as why Russellville can't get its act together.
If you look at the three facilities we mentioned, Saracen in Pine Bluff, Oaklawn in Hot Springs, Southland in West Memphis, and Skip, you and I have been involved, among other things, for many decades in the tourism sector in Arkansas. You take those three, that is almost a $1 billion investment in the state's tourism economy. 10 years ago, I don't think any of us would have ever dreamed there would be a $1 billion investment in this state's tourism sector.
I just think it's really a remarkable story and waiting to be told even further. Not only is an investment, but they're being run well. That's one of the things that you can build a casino, but they're being run well. They've got good people running them. And that's what's impressive to me. I'm pretty encouraged. I think for Hot Springs, Pine Bluff, and West Memphis, those three anchors, Rex, represent some really optimism for the future.
I'm going to make another optimistic prediction in that area, Skip. We're talking about outside investment that's coming into Arkansas, fueling our tourism economy and our quality of life for those who already live there. I predict, and again, this may be an easy prediction to make because everything he does is first class, but I predict that whatever Johnny Morris of Bass Pro Shops ends up doing with the old Dog Patch property is going to be spectacular and great for that rural area of Newton County.
Well, if he does, you are exactly right. I hope, and let me say, there's a track record, Rex, for your prediction being true, because there's no doubt that what he's done has been really rewarding for the areas where he has made these
Look what he did with the pyramid in Memphis, right. Skip, which was an empty building sitting there on the edge of the river.
Yeah, and I think that I'm hopeful. I don't know enough about that. You're far better into that. My prediction in terms of economic development and in terms of 2022 is that regardless of the political party, I am optimistic that we will see some really good people run for office. And I want to say two that are running as Republicans that I happen to know, good people, by the way, Chris Beller in Batesville, dentist, good guy, Jeremiah Moore in Clarendon, who has just been a stalwart for the Delta. So hopefully, as you have written about the know-nothings a lot, I think hopefully if we can look around and get some new people who are investing in the future, it's encouraging to me to see people like Chris Beller and Jeremiah Moore enter the arena.
I will actually join you in your optimism. I had that down. I predict that the power of the know-nothing wing of the Arkansas legislature will wane with this year's elections. In essence, the fever will finally break a bit in Arkansas. It won't go away, but it will break. And we won't see in 2023 nearly as bad of a regular session as we saw in 2021, in which the know-nothings basically, Skip, hijacked the legislative agenda, and it resulted in what I think we'd probably both agree was the worst legislative session in our lifetimes.
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing, and I think you're going to see it happen again. And unfortunately, in the budget session coming up in February, you're going to see a lot of hijacking take place. But I think 2022, Rex, on a national level, there's one issue that I believe will ultimately be a major dominating factor, and it will enter the debate when the Supreme Court rules on the abortion issue. Mm-hmm. And whenever that decision comes down, that is going to shape the politics of the general election in 2022. How it plays out, who knows? How it shapes it, who knows? But it's going to be a major 2022 issue that a lot of people are not talking about right now.
Well, it's going to be an interesting year. This is not a prediction. This is a promise. Skip Rutherford's going to be back on a regular basis on the Southern Fried Podcast as we go through 2022 to discuss some of these developments.
Can I end with a real happy note?
Yes, please do.
My prediction for 2022 is that Arkansas is going to see the Fab Five when Eric Musselman brings in these five fabulous freshmen, three of whom are from Arkansas. And while Arkansas people may be a little worried about the basketball program, or not, I would say not worried, spoiled, is that I think we saw the Fab Five at Michigan. We're going to see the Fab Five at Arkansas.
I hope you are right. Skip, thank you so much, as always.
Enjoyed it, Rex. We'll do it again.
Always fun. Thank you for joining us for this edition of the Southern Fried Podcast, a production of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette.